fine-grained authorization with custom scopes using Amazon Cognito. Hello everyone, my name is Ankush Jain and this is the seventh video of this series. If you have not watched the earlier videos of this series, then please do watch. I have provided all the links in the description below. In this particular video, what we will be doing, we will be creating an ASP.NET Core API and we will define custom scopes in Amazon Cognito, and we will configure our ASP.NET Core API to leverage those custom scopes and to implement fine-grained access on our API endpoints. So without wasting much time, let's get started. Okay, so first of all, we need to understand why do we even need custom scopes and what are custom scopes. So just think you started a company, you started a startup, and you plan to create multiple products. You plan to launch multiple products, and once you launch multiple products, all those products will be kind of having their own APIs. So let's understand this with an example of Google. So Google is a company and Google created multiple products such as Gmail, Photos, Google Drive, Google Sheets, Google Contacts, Google Docs, Google Maps. So all these products has their own set of APIs. So Gmail has its own API, for Google Photos has its own API. And further, Gmail is a product, has its own API, but Gmail API has further uh, a lot of permissions within the API. So it's not like you are accessing a Gmail API. You can send email, you can get email, you can update. You can perform all the operations on Gmail APIs. So maybe Gmail exposes 100 endpoints, but each endpoints require a different permission, and that permission is something is known as a scope in OAuth term. Okay, another example, you can see Microsoft. So Microsoft has a lot of products such as Outlook, OneDrive, PowerPoint, Teams, Excel, and many other that I don't know. But yeah, so each product has its own API, its own endpoints, and those endpoints or that particular API of a product has multiple permissions. So each endpoint can require a different permission or different scope, so that they can control who can access these APIs. So that's what custom scope is. So now, okay, before moving further, let's understand what is a resource server, because I am just explaining the terms that you may find over in the internet and you may get confused. What is this? What is that? So just you will be frequently seeing those terms when you are working on custom scopes. So let's understand what is a resource server. So resource server is nothing. Uh, it is, if I say Gmail is a product, so whatever your product is, you will have to create a resource server for, and you will, I mean, okay. So Gmail is your API, Gmail is your product. So you will create a resource server for Gmail. So just think. A one-to-one mapping with API or API product and resource server. There's a one-to-one mapping. So if you read out this sentence, you will obviously understand what is it. So large scale deployments may have more than one resource server. Google services, for example, have dozens of resource servers such as Google Cloud Platform, Google Maps, Google Drive, YouTube, Google Plus, and many others. So each product has its own resource server, and each of these resource servers are distinctly separate, but they all share same authorization server. Similarly, what we are going to do here, uh, you don't have to enter a different email ID or password for different Google account. Similarly, in if we are using Cognito, so we are using same authorization server, which is our Amazon Cognito, but we can create multiple resource server within Amazon Cognito. So that's what I was trying to explain. Now, understanding custom scopes. So I will. This is the last point where I would be explaining this, and then after we will start, hands-on. So we'll see quickly. So as I said that Google is a company. Google has multiple products, and each product has its own API: Gmail, Google Photos, Google Drive, and Google Contacts. And each API has multiple scopes, like or multiple permissions. So what happens normally? You go on Google and you create a client app or app client, whatever you call it, and what you will do, you will choose, like for example, you are creating a mobile application and that would require access on your access on your Google Map, access on Google Drive, or and Google Contacts. So that require access on these you know you would need to access these three APIs from Google in your mobile application. So what you will do, you will create an app client in your Google account, and that in that app client you will select those three APIs, that you will be consuming those three APIs. And the moment you select those three APIs, next question is asked, what is scopes, what permissions you need, because it is not like if you are consuming a Drive API, you will have to request all the scopes or all the permissions of Drive. That's not a mm, you know that I think that is not what Google allow, or if it allows, it is not a best practice, because you should only request those permissions from a user which you need. So you will create an app client, you will select the API, and you will select the scopes that you need from that API. And once you are done, you will save this app client. And on your app site, once you user try to log in into the app, you will ask user to log in with their Google identity. They will enter their username and password, and then they will get a box that Google, or not Google, sorry, your app want to access permissions on these APIs or these apps. And then you will click, the user who is authenticating will click on allow, or allow permission, something like that. And then you will get an access token, and that access token will have all these scopes within embedded inside it. So then you can invoke these APIs with that access token. So that's the whole concept of custom scopes. So now, before we move ahead, we should know what we are going to build, or what we will be building in this hands-on lab. So let me show you this example or this diagram that I have created. So it's taking some time to load. Okay, so now let's first understand this part. So what we are going to do, we are going to create a Cognito user pool that we have already created in our previous lecture. So we are going to leverage the same. Inside that, we are going to create one resource server. So when I say resource server, assuming that you are creating a product and you are creating an API for that product, so you have to create one resource server for that API or that product. So we will be creating a product, and resource server for that product. We will be creating few custom scopes, and that's all. This is just like just an example. Like in Cognito, we can have multiple resource server, but in this demo, we will be just creating one. Then we will be creating an app client for our web app or mobile app, whatever app we are going to build. And then in that app client, we will we will provide we'll select this resource server, like this app client should have access on which API. So we will select the API and select the scopes. Okay, so that this app client can only have access on those resources, or on those, I mean, will only have access on that API, and only with the limited permissions that we are assigning here. So once we do that, we will get a token, and once we get the token, that token will have that scopes embedded inside it. So we'll pass that token to Amazon API gateway, and API gateway will validate the token with Cognito authorizer. However, it can validate the scopes at Cognito authorizer level, sorry, API gateway level as well. But we are also going to do some customization inside our ASP.NET Core API to basically read out those custom scopes, uh, and we have written some custom code to make sure that if the user is having this scope or this permission, that he should have access on this controller or action. And if user has a specific permission, that then only he should be able to a specific endpoint or action or a controller. So that kind of code we will see later in this video. So now what we are going to do. So let's quickly jump to the steps, and let's create a resource server in Cognito user pool. So just go to AWS console, click on Cognito, select the user pool that we have created, go to the app integration. Inside app integration, Click on resource server. Oh, I see. Okay, this is the Mumbai region, so we don't have uh, we are not using this user pool. We have to move to the North Virginia region. Okay, so this is the user pool that we had created in our previous tutorial, and here we'll go in app integration, and here resource server. So we'll create a resource server. So uh, just this, and I will copy this name because I think it requires naming convention like this, or resource ident server ident enter a typically the identifier is an. Okay, I don't think this is required. So I just provided this resource name com.example.com, example.photos. So this is my photos API or photos product. If you are creating a payment API, so you can create a payment, something like that. But yeah, for now, I have I'm creating a photos as a resource server name, and then add custom scopes. So here I will add these three scope: basic, read, and write. So if the user has basic permission, then he can perform basic operation. If has read permission, then he can read. If his user has a write permission, then he can perform write operations. Then I will okay. Resource server identifier. I think enter. Let's enter the same. The identifier can't be changed. Uh, Typically, the identifier is an HTTPS endpoint URL. Okay, so description. Just sample scope. I sample scope. So we have created our resource server, and this is our resource server. We just kept the same name and kept same resource identifier. Now, what is the next thing? We created scopes, update custom scopes in app client. So since we have created this resource server, if you in your organization you're building another product, then you can create another resource server for another product, and there you can create as many permissions as you want. And once you do that, after creating APIs, you will create app client, and these app client will be kind of for the basically consumer side. So if you are creating a mobile app or a web app, so you will create an app client for your mobile app and a separate app client for your web app, and so on. So we have already an app client for our test client. So what we are going to do, we will select it, and in the hosted UI we'll just go there, and this is our hosted UI settings, scopes. So here you can see custom scopes, and here you have to select these these three scopes. So if we don't select these scopes, then we can never access an API that requires these scopes, because these scopes should be selected here, and once they are selected here, then a user who is obtaining a Cognito token via this app client will have these scopes in the token. But if the client ID or client app itself doesn't have these custom scopes, then how a user will get these scopes? So we have to make sure that the custom scopes are added here. Now it is not like you have to add all the custom scopes. You can just for example, there are 50 scopes or 50 permissions, then you can just select 10 permissions here, and the client who is accessing the token, trying to get the token, will get those 10 or whatever the number of custom scopes that you have selected here, will get only those permissions in the token. And again, the second thing, if even if your API exposes 50 permissions, you select just 10 custom scopes here, and while accessing the token, while requesting the token, the client passes what scopes it needs. So he may pass one or two scopes, then out of the 10 that that you have selected here, so he will get only access to those two or three custom scopes that he is requesting. So it is also up to the client, like he can reduce the number of custom scopes that he needs while requesting the token. Okay, so now we have done this. So now we will jump to this this GitHub repository, and this GitHub repository we just need to follow the README file. So okay, here I have explained what is resource server. So let's create an ASP.NET Core API within the same solution. Create a new project, ASP.NET Core Web API, custom scopes. What should be the name? ASP.NET. Okay, I forgot to add ASP.NET underscore custom scopes authorization example. Okay, we are following the same naming convention. So these all things are default. Then we have to install this NuGet package. Then, so if you have not watched the previous video, the first video where I have created this anonymous API, so you will find why I am using this package, and how the .NET Lambda function works and the internal of .NET Lambda function. So if you have not watched that, then just go and watch. Okay, so I have installed this. So this will configure this web API to as a Lambda function, so that this API can be run within the Lambda. Okay, now just add this line to add Lambda support. So it will replace the Kestrel with the Lambda server, and just install this package as well. Okay, NuGet is here, so I just need to see. Okay. Now while installing this, make sure you select the 6.0 version, because we are using .NET 6. Okay. Now inside app settings.json, just copy this. However, we are going to use environment variable, but for the local development, you may need it. So just keep it. Then to enable authorization using custom scopes. Okay, so now just copy this part, and I will explain you what this is doing. So here, here, here. So what we are doing basically, okay. So here we are adding authorization, and we are creating two policies in .NET. And what these policies basically says that uh, Mm, this, I mean, one policy initially requires these two permissions or two custom scopes. The second policy requires these two permissions, and one is read and write, and the basic is common. So we have created two policies, and they are self-explanatory and self-understanding, so that once we apply this policy on a controller, so that would check that these two uh, custom scopes are present in the token or not, and if they are not, then it will throw unauthorized error. So now since we are getting this error of it is not able to recognize this, so we will add this code, but before that, just go here and also grab that information. So just go here and okay, add this here. So on the top, we are just reading the values from our configuration and creating two values which we are going to use to validate the token. And here just copy this one to enable course setting. If you are building a front end app, then this course would be basically allowing uh, a course policy will allow the domains to request this API. And then finally, this is something, this code. Okay. So here what we are doing, okay. So here we have added an authentication, and we specified that we are using JWT bearer authentication scheme, and that's why we added this method here. And here we have defined how a token, incoming token, needs to be validated. So for that, just a second. So for that, we are basically uh, okay. So now here is the difference. Okay, if I just, sorry, if I just show you the authorization example, so there we just provide, we just added these four lines and we just provided it that it need to validate the audience true. And what is the audience? This is the audience, which is client ID, and this is the authority. Okay, and this is authority is basically a valid issuer from where it will download the private key to validate the token. Here we provided the authority, so again it will use that authority from the valid issuer URL to download the public key, sorry, not private key, public key, and it will validate the signature or validate the JWT token. Now we are using a custom token validation parameter. Sorry, we are using a custom audience validator, and the reason of using a custom audience validator is because here we are not using a custom validator. We just use these parameters: valid audience and valid audience and validate audience. But here we are using this custom validator for audience, and audience is something, a client ID. So it will just check that the client ID which is coming in the token should match with the client ID that we have stored here where in our configuration. So it should match with that. So why we have to write a custom audience validator? Because when we deal with custom scopes, we okay. So there are two types of tokens in Amazon Cognito. One is ID token, another is access token. So in the previous video where we were testing the application, or we were we were uh, securing our API. So we were just sending ID token. Okay, we were not sending. So if you see here in authentication example, here we have defined that this ID token. So uh, the we get both things, ID token as well as access token, but we need ID token always. Like even if you see here, we have specified that we need ID token. But the moment you start using custom scopes, you have to use access token, because access token custom scopes are not embedded into ID token. So, and when we get access token, we don't get an audience claim where where inside that audience claim we get a client ID when we are using ID token. But when we are using access token, we don't get that audience claim. Instead, we get that audience value in a client ID uh, claim. So that's why to retrieve that client ID from the access token, we have to use this custom audience validator. And yeah, so that's one thing that I wanted to call out. Okay, now I just need to go back and do this stuff, because we are uh, we are we will be deploying this inside a child URL, so that's why we have to use it. So I think here use path base. And sorry, this is wrong. This I think I have missed something. I think these things should have come before builder. So yeah, okay, so this is should come here. Then after app is built, we should use this. Okay, now for course policy, just copy this and replace this. So we okay, now everything is done. However, if you're confused, then you can just go in program.cs and you can just follow that. And now we are getting some exceptions, not exceptions, some errors. So we this is not found, this is not found. So what we are going to do, we are going to uh, copy some code from our own repository, and I will just close this and we'll go here, and you can see Cognito helper. So I have created this class, and inside Cognito helper, so I will just copy this folder and we'll create a folder. Mm, and we'll create sorry, this class here. Mm, this is the handler, and we'll go raw. So mm, now I need to create this class as well. And to get this class, I think I just okay, that is also present inside Cognito helper, so you can just go and but I just copied it from there. So what we are now, I think this should be fixed. Okay, and yeah, so I will close. So now earlier, as I said, we were creating policies, and this policy is basically we are making use of authorization requirements. So these are two things that I had to create, and what they are. So one is the Cognito scope authorization. So what it is doing, it will basically just check the scope, and uh, it will use the scope claim, will retrieve the value of the scope, and will check whether the specific scope that we need is basically existing in the claims or not. So here we are passing what scopes we need, required scopes. So if you just go here, required scopes are set here, and here uh, here sorry where so here requirement dot required scopes. So we are checking uh, all the scopes which are required are available in the incoming token or not. So that's what we are checking, and if that is all the scopes are available, then this policy uh, will return true, and your request will be authenticated, otherwise that will be rejected. So that's what we did, and here we are just added that I authorization handler, we just added that for the dependency injection. Okay, so these are basically some .NET authentication related stuff that I did while I was just doing this POC and stuff. So you can read about these things more into the detail, because these things have little bit fade away from my mind. So yeah, you can explore these things. But yeah, you have the code, and then you can go over the internet and search anything. So this is what we have done. Finally, what we will do, we will go back on this API custom scopes authorization. Just scroll down, uh, create a controller, and this. Okay, just copy this and create a photo controller. So we created a photo resource server. So assuming that this is our photos product, or we are just creating this API for that, for our product that we are going to launch. And this photo product has basically two endpoints. One is the get endpoint, another is post endpoint. Get endpoints require read photos policy, which would make use of two scopes, and write photos policy will require two different scopes that we need. So we have specified there. Finally, just add this thing here. So it is so as of now, it is not showing you publish to AWS Lambda, but once you do that, it will start showing you publish to AWS Lambda. Okay, now I think we are good. We have done all the changes, so now we need to deploy it. So we are done with the step 3. Now we'll create a AWS Lambda function in console. So just go here in Lambda and just copy the name of this. So we will create a Lambda function here. Select .NET 6 execution role, change, use an existing IAM role, serverless .NET API. And I have created this role in my previous I mean in the previous video of this series. So that's from where it is coming. Okay, just create the function. Okay, we have created this. Now I will just go back and select an older function to copy the environment variable values. So I will just go here in our current one, in configuration, in environment variables, I will add environment variable. So this is something that we were maintaining in app settings.json, but if we are using uh, lambda function, so we should use this. So I will just copy this. Okay, I forgot to copy you, so I will do it, and I just remove the space. Okay, that's all. Okay, so it is done. Now what we are going to do, we are just going to click on publish to AWS Lambda, and it is going to fetch the function. So it just fetch the recent one, and then just make sure that you keep the same name as project, because this is the assembly name. So for the .NET project that uses top level statements, we should use this assembly name instead of the handler name. Okay, next. Okay, it takes some time. Meanwhile, we see what are the next steps. So we have created a .NET Lambda, and we are deploying it. Then we have to create a route in API gateway. Okay, so the next step is, next wizard has come, and we got the environment variables here, and we just need to click upload. So click upload. It will zip publish. It will publish, then zip, and will upload uh, the zip file to the Lambda function. Now just open API gateway till the time it is coming loading. Sorry, publishing. So it has updated the Lambda function, and just verify this. Go inside Lambda function. You can see I have to refresh it. 12 seconds ago it is updated. So this Lambda function is updated. What we will do, we'll just go in the API, and here we have created three endpoints in previous videos. So now I will just create one more, and here I will just go in program.cs. We'll see what was the URL. So this was the URL. So I will use this. So I will create resource, and then I will close this again, and I will just click here, select proxy, and we'll select proxy. Proxy. Okay, why I am doing this? The same thing, I would not repeat myself, but the same thing has been explained in the earlier videos. So you can uh proxy resource. What is okay? The space was there. So that's now how we have created a proxy resource. So uh, we just got a method here. We need to update the integration. We'll select the lambda function. Need to select the custom scopes authorizer. In execution role, we don't need to provide any. I think we are good. Just save this. Oh shit, we did wrong thing. I think we have to edit it. Integration request, we have to select this proxy integration, and now we are good. Earlier we forgot to keep it proxy integration. Okay, now we are good. So our API, we have created the API, we deployed it to Lambda function, we created a route, we connected the route with the Lambda function. So now everything is good, but we have not done the security part. So here in the authorization, we have not added the Cognito authorizer, so we will attach it. So now authorizer is also attached. I will save it. So now you might be asking, like, we have not provided any scope at API gateway level, which I was showing you here. So now how, so if the token comes, how the API gateway will validate the scope. So what we are going to do in the API gateway, again, just close this so that we get more space. In method request, select method request here, edit, and here you get authorization scopes. So you have to provide scopes. So what you will do, what strategy we have used, because our .NET Lambda function, uh, this Lambda function is dealing with these scopes: one, read, write. Okay, we need two scopes, and if our API grows later in future, so we may have 30 or 40 or maybe 15 or 10 n number of permissions or scopes. So we can't provide all the scopes here, because in that case what will happen, every token should have a scope. I mean, it should have all the scopes in the incoming token, and that is not something that we want. So what custom kind of approach we used, we just we are making one scope as a mandatory scope, which is this, and I will add it here. And if I will not add read, write, or other scopes here. All that I will be doing at API, sorry, at Lambda level. So if I just go here, on the, yeah, on the, if we see the architecture, so here we are just validating the incoming token, and whether it is having one mandatory scope or not. Then further scopes are basically taken care within the ASP.NET Core API itself. So that's how we are that's how we are managing the scopes, custom scopes in our ASP.NET Core application. Okay, so I will just add this scope and we'll save. So now we have done all the things. So you can see this has been done. The Cognito authorization, I don't see the scope here, but yeah, it is, we have saved. So now what we will do, we will deploy it to a dev stage and deploy. So now everything is deployed. So what is the next step? Okay, so we have attached Cognito authorizer, we have added this scope. Now obtain Cognito token from ThunderClient and inspect it in JWT.io. So we will open this. Now I you can just this is similar to Postman. You can just use the scripts that we have added in our repository here in ThunderClient and refer this section how to test to basically install this ThunderClient extension and import these environment variable and collection in your Visual Studio Code extension. So once you do that, you just check environment variable, and inside environment variable you can see the basic scopes are this, but advanced scopes are in having these basic, we are requesting these permissions. Okay, com.example.photos.write. So we are the scopes that we have created earlier, we are also passing the scopes here in advanced scopes, and we are using this variable here in custom scopes. So if you see in auth, uh, while requesting the token, we are using scopes, advanced scopes, but in RBAC, if you see, we are just using basic scopes, but here we are using advanced scope. So that is the difference. So, and another thing here, we are saying that we need to use access token, because two tokens are returned from Cognito's ID token and access token. But since we are using or dealing with the custom scopes, we need to use access token. So what I will do, I will click on generate token. It will open the hosted UI. I need to provide my credential, and okay, I think the wrong password is saved. So success, please close this tab, and I got this token, access token here. I will just open jwt.io and will inspect this. Okay, so you see we got Cognito group claim admin, and the main thing is scope. So you see we got all these scopes as as a space separated value. Write, OpenID, profile, com example read, com example basic. So we got all these scopes in this JWT token as in the scope claim. And again, as I said, we also get client ID. I guess where is client ID? Yeah, this is client ID. So we are not getting OUD audience. That's why we had to write custom audience validator to validate this. This client ID basically is something that we have specified in environment here. Yeah, 518, 518. So we have inspected the token, so now we are just going to send this request because we have got all the scopes in this access token. So we'll send this request to photos, a post that uh, that will basically require write permission. So let's see. Okay, we are getting 200 okay response because we are not returning anything from there. So yeah, okay, write photos. Now I will just make a get request that should also return read. Okay, so yeah, I will just turn it to get and then send. Now let's do one thing. Okay, so what we are going to do, we are just going here, and in serverless API we are removing this write permission. Okay, let's experiment this and save it. Now collection, go back, custom scopes, auth, generate token, open, it will generate. Now we got token, this token. Let's again analyze this token. So here this time just got read access but did not get a write scope. Okay, you can see this read and this basic but no write. So now we will try to hit get, which that should work. This is working, but it now post should not work. So let's see what's the behavior. So we are getting 403. So yeah, that's how, I mean, we have validated that things are working fine, which we were expecting. So I think we have covered everything. We have tested the API from the ThunderClient. So this is how simply you can start using custom scopes and build scalable APIs, which and implement fine-grained security there. So I hope you have liked this video, and I will see you in the next lecture. Thank you very much for watching.